Good day to you, Guyana, and welcome to Facing the Nation. I am Malika Ramsey. Thank you very much for joining us for another informative program this week. Well, our program this week really and truly comes at an opportune time, especially regarding what it is that we're going to be talking about today on today's program. As you know, last Monday, I'm still calling him new because, of course, it's a new administration. The new Minister of Finance, that's Mr. Winston Jordan, would have presented the budget in the National Assembly. That is the 2015 budget. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's only for 4 months because that's what we're basically dealing with for the rest of the year. And one of the big announcements coming out of Mr. Jordan's budget is the fact that $300 million has been allocated for the restoration of Georgetown. I know this is a big concern for many of you living in the city. You've continued to complain. If it's not garbage, it's heavy traffic, it's bad streets, bad roads, bad lights. So I have the man, I'm going to call him the man for the job. He was even just reminding me that in all his years of as a public figure, he's never shied away from the media. So it is my pleasure for the first time to have on this program, Facing the Nation, the mayor of Georgetown, of course, Mr. Hamilton Green. I am not even going to try to remind you of all his other achievements, politically and otherwise, because we may be here all day. So I'm going to introduce you to the mayor of Georgetown, Mr. Hamilton Green. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Malika.
Good to have you. Wonderful to have you. All right, so we're going to go straight into today's discussion, but I can probably go out on a limb and promise you that I may open up the phone lines depending on the amount of time that we have left. And of course, if I do open up the phone lines, I would like you, even though I know he's capable of answering other questions in other sectors and other areas, if I do open up the phone lines, I'd like to urge you just to stick to the city, because I know your concerns and questions regarding our city are many, and you may have some that I may not even bring up during our discussions. First off, Mayor Green, let's talk about the $300 million. Is that allocation an opportune time, and how do you see your organization receiving that?
It has come at an ideal time when the Georgetown municipality has been stultified as a result of the suffocation by the previous administration. We, even before that announcement, because we were assured of the maximum cooperation of the President and the Cabinet, we started planning to do things that we could not do before. And for me, in a sense, it emancipates the municipality. It allows us an opportunity for the first time in more than 2 decades to ensure that the quartet is on board, working towards solving the problems of Georgetown and affecting a genuine restoration of our capital city. The quartet I refer to is the state, the president and the cabinet, the municipality itself, the public sector, the people, the public, and the business sector. We have started meetings in the several wards of Georgetown to ensure that those 4 groups are on board and that we're working together to do what is a massive operation. Mm-hmm. I don't think many people realize how much is involved to restore Georgetown to what the president has demanded. Mm-hmm. Quite rightly, to make Georgetown a green place, a clean place, a safe place. It's a monumental task, but speaking for myself and many others, we are anxious to be part of this crusade so that we bequeath to our young people, and in fact to the nation, a city that we can be proud of and that Guyanese everywhere can see it as a beautiful green city.
Mayor Green, not to be the killer of the joy, our joy in terms of restoring our city and working towards that. But the fact is, we have been in a culture in a very long time. Our people are unfortunately in a culture whereby, okay, it is okay to litter. I mean, I don't think some people realize that there are actually playing a part in destroying the city, and then when the city gets to this unforgivable, if you want to call it that, unforgivable state, we complain that the authorities are not doing anything. How much needs to be done to break that culture?
Well, we need the help of the media, the religious organizations, and our educational institutions. Because it's a whole generation that emerge out of a culture of indecency, corruption, and a lack of appreciation to care the environment. Changing people's attitudes are not easy. And this perhaps is one of the major challenges we face. We started by a number of meetings in communities, as I said, so that we pass on to residents, old and young, the idea, the belief of ownership, that they must be responsible for their communities, their contiguous areas, and that they should play a part. The government and the municipality will do what we can with our resources, but at the end of the day, in the communities, north, south, east, or west, it depends on how people care the facilities. The business people have an important role to play. Take, for example, the major problem that I have encountered in all of these community meetings so far is a question of drainage. And there's so many factors that adversely affect our drainage. We were just discussing with one of our old engineers, Mr. Allen, the whole question of grease traps. We discovered in parts of Kitty that a lot of the damage being done is the fact that some restaurants have been allowed to operate without proper grease traps. So those grease get into the canals and compromise our drainage system. People have been building bridges too low, and all sorts of lawlessness. So that process is the biggest challenge.
If I can interject here, and I'm happy you raised that about restaurants and grease trappings and all of that. I think this is where zoning comes in. What can be done or what is going to be done, and I don't know if this 300 million would cover that, to ensure proper zoning, because apart from what you've explained, you have big buildings, big businesses going up in areas which should really be, or the initial intention were for these areas to be residential areas, and you have business persons building these tall buildings in these areas, and it seems as though they're breaking both the zoning and the building code. Your thoughts, sir?
The damage done to the city over the years is enormous. I must repeat that so people know where we're coming from and the challenges that we face. I have already discussed this with the Minister of Communities, Honorable Ronald Bulkan, and fortunately, he was able to retrieve a report done by Professor Akbar Khan, which was intended to do the right things for Georgetown. It was called Rehabilitation of Georgetown. It should have ended in 2010, I think.
Okay.
But for some reasons beyond belief, we could not get the then administration to put in place the legal requirements, the administrative changes required to put in place a plan that came out of discussions with every segment of the city of Georgetown. The trouble is, a lot of the land identified to do certain things have been taken over, sequestered, sold by the PP government. But to answer your question, Minister Bulkan made a copy available to me, and we have already started to look at it. And I've asked him, and he's agreed, to harmonize the work of the Central Housing and Plan Authority to deal with the question you raised. Because we discovered, because of certain friends, people putting up businesses, massive structures in what ought to be residential areas. Remember that Rex McKay had to take a certain government minister to court, putting up a tower in front of a church. People had no respect even for churches and mosques and temples. And that matter had to be taken to court. It ought not to be in the case.
Mm-hmm.
So, in spite of the problems, we hope to deal with this big question raised of zoning. The parallel issue, of course, is congestion.
Mm-hmm.
You recall that Professor Khan's proposal included a recommendation that any person put up a new business structure in the central business district of Georgetown should provide parking for his staff and customers, either on site or find land nearby. The then government said that that will be a disincentive to business. So you have these massive structures going up in Regent Street, Robb Street, Camp Street, Queenston, all over the place. And there is no parking. Responsible businesses such as banks and Citizens Bank have, in their plans, provided a certain amount of parking for their staff, so that that building going up by Citizens Bank at the corner of South Road and Camp Street, on the ground floor, there is provision for parking, but others have not done that.
But then, Mayor Green, on the same note of parking, people in the city are now complaining. We're currently at a location where it is an issue now. That they've introduced, or I should say reintroduced, parallel parking only in certain areas. The argument by the ordinary man on the street is that that is a problem, because of course if you parallel park, there is less space for you to park. It's more of an inconvenience. How do you explain to the public that the parallel parking might be to benefit the city?
It's inconvenient to the motorist. But I believe the cabinet and the president looked at this question and they're quite right. What that does and will do is to make more space available for the cyclists and in particular the pedestrian. Research has shown that a lot of pedestrians have lost their lives because there's insufficient place for them to walk. People are complaining because over the years they've become accustomed to, if I want to buy a pound of cheese or quake of crabs or some bananas, I drive and
Pull up and
buy it along Robb Street or North Road. That only happens in Guyana. To go to shop, you should go somewhere, park your car, walk, and buy. The other thing about it is that those of us who visit North America would know that even to get to work, you leave your car somewhere and you go by either public transport or you walk. But again, people feel that if they work at office X, they must drive to the office and just step out. Yes, it is convenient, but in the interest of relieving congestions, persons must recognize that they've got to change their habits and keep in line with the development. I believe that this government later on, with the appropriate resources, will reconfigure the city and the countryside so that there's more space and we relieve the present congestion. Flyovers, I don't know, we already have proposals for parking. But in a congested city, it has to be carefully planned by engineers and others with the technical competence and the citizens and the commercial communities what we do. We've had proposals, for example, of shifting the bus terminals to the north, south, and east of the city, so to have all them congregate in one place as we do now around Starbuck Market.
Mm-hmm.
The idea at one time was to have these larger buses at one place so that people move by cycles, smaller vehicles to the point of destination. These are things that will emerge out of dialogue with the public and a caring government that has an overview and the concern of all citizens. You may satisfy 6 persons, but you make 4 uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Well, this
the majority
is life.
rules. Before we come off of parking, you did say a whole lot. You did indicate that government has these plans indeed to bring relief to the people, specifically right now to our city when it comes to traffic congestion and parking and so on. But while we're waiting on what may be a grand relief indeed, are there any plans in currently by your organization, by the city council, to have some sort of parking lot, parking establishment, someplace in the city, at a prominent point in the city where people, whether you're going to work or going to shop or whatever, where they can park for now until the major relief comes?
The answer is no. We have right now being considered at least 2 proposals for parking by groups. They have identified particular boundaries, and they've asked us to support a proposal they have. One group will actually take agents abroad to train them with parking meters, sophisticated ones, so you can use your cell phone, etc., to pay for parking. The answer has to be that people will learn that they just can't park their vehicles anywhere. Container trucks will have to be restricted to certain hours to unload their cargo. People are now selling food and clothing from vans in Georgetown. That has to come to an end so that we relieve the congestion that exists. It's a long march, but we have started.
Apart from parking, the parking aside, is the city council working with the relevant authorities, I mean, to some extent, the Guyana Police Force, to not only introduce, but to reinforce sanctions on people who, because it's going to take some getting used to, and some people, unfortunately, will have to be made examples. So is the council working along with whatever organization, whether it be the Guyana Police Force or else, to ensure that sanctions are introduced and possibly reinforced for people who break the laws when these measures are put in place to ensure relief for the city?
As recent as yesterday morning, there was a consultation hosted by the Minister of Communities with all the 4 municipalities, 6 municipalities. One suggestion that emerged, and again, the President is leading this effort for change, for the good, is that we need to do 2 things. Employ the old philosophy of the carrot and the stick. We will encourage people to help them, offer them incentives. But as you said, we're dealing with human beings, and from antiquity, people break the laws. I mean, you had the 10 Commandments. How many of us obey those 10 Commandments? And as is the case of the holy books, if you fail to obey those rules, you must be punished. So that there is really a proposal to increase fines, and in some cases, to have draconian penalties. At the meeting I had this morning, I reminded some of the officers that Lee Kuan Yew took over the dirtiest city in the world, Singapore. He left it at his death as the cleanest city. I believe that David Granger is in the mold of Lee Kuan Yew insofar as rehabilitating and making our city and our countryside a beautiful, clean, and his words, a green place.
Green place. Okay, well said.
So the point I want to make is that we now have a leader who is sensitive to these things. We no longer have these cultural barbarians. And what is important is for the media and the people to work along. In life, if you're sick, and this country has been very sick for a long time, sometimes you need to take medicine and injection, which is painful sometimes, to cure the disease. And I made this analogy right here, I think, some days ago that David Granger and his cabinet has taken over a house with wood ants, cockroach, rats, a leaking roof. And you need to treat those things before you're moving new furniture and putting blinds. That's where we are today. It's a massive movement.
Viewers, if you're now tuning in, this is Facing the Nation. Today I am chatting with Mayor, His Worship the Mayor actually, Mr. Hamilton Green, and of course we're talking about the city, cleaning up the city, plans for the city, and of course his contributions and the contributions of the Mayor and City Council when it comes to restoring our city. Of course, this discussion comes as there was a recent announcement, recent allocation actually by the Finance Minister, Mr. Winston Jordan, that $300 million has been allocated to restoring our beautiful city, what once was the Garden City. Now, Mayor Green, let's talk about some other specifics. For example, are you getting support? You've already talked about government support. You've already indicated that you've more or less gotten a mandate from His Excellency to make our city green again. Are you getting support at all from the private sector?
We have not fully engaged them yet. In fact, a letter is on its way to the private sector and the business community as a whole. And we'll be inviting them as a group and individually to exercise we have on Wednesday the 19th, that's Wednesday coming, at 9:30 a.m. in the morning at the National Cultural Center.
Okay.
We hope there to, in my letter, to ask them to come on board, to offer their commitment to help generally, but specifically to assume the responsibility to fix and maintain the environment contiguous to where they operate, including the parapets, the verges, that they must be responsible to maintain it all year round. There's some people operating street corner garages where they're throwing waste oil, destroying the grass. We've got to restore and retake our parapets. Already, the President has given instructions, the police have started the exercise to move all those bush trucks which have been destroying the city for years. Once a bush truck parks on a parapet, they were not intended to be in the city in the first place. And many of them are single axle trucks, which not only damage the parapets, but damage our roads. So that when the rain falls, you don't have a road, you don't have a street. So the exercise has started, and I expect those who have been callous will complain. But I used the analogies a moment ago. The medicine is necessary to cure the patient.
You raised the issue of our parapets. What plans are there? And of course, I think this too is where the private sector would come in because, example, avenues. They're mostly private businesses in certain areas, and the avenues should serve to help to beautify our city. What plans are in place to restore our avenues, and how quickly can we see works being started on that?
Work has started. There's been self-help work in Waterloo Street. I saw young people from the bank and the hospital working on weekends. This will continue. We have to reignite the momentum which started a few weeks ago. Ministry of Infrastructure is on board. They're helping us. And as I said, there's optimum cooperation at long last from the central government. And the fact that the president is behind this means we can't afford to fail, as far as I'm concerned.
So which means we'll also be seeing a brighter city in terms of lights, electricity, street lights.
That is part of the exercise. People still complain about street lighting, but it's a financial requirement. In some cases, we've had people offering to bring in lamps. They have in some cases, and we will pay the bill. Again, we have to overcome the past. that's history. We're looking to today and tomorrow, which I know will be bright in terms of what you just said.
All right, Mayor Green, before I even take a break from some of my own questions and allow our viewers to call in and pose theirs, I want to, you did touch on drainage earlier, but I want to specifically talk about the pumps because, yes, we know works have begun to clear the drains and so on, and sensitizing people, but you still see massive flooding in our city, specifically for the pumps. What is your role in terms of ensuring that all of the pumps are functioning?
Well, I had a long discussion with Joe Singh, the person appointed to look at this question of drainage in the whole country. For Georgetown, I don't think you need rocket science. As someone who was born, bred, and grew up in Georgetown, I know the answers. It requires manpower, machines, and money. We are now developing a plan to work with the other engineers for Georgetown. The fact is, Georgetown is unusual. I made a presentation to some students from Iowa yesterday. We're below sea level. You talk about pumps. We have done an analysis, and it appears to me that even if you have optimum conditions, with heavy rainfalls, we will need increased pumping capacity. The ideal conditions will include look at all of our canals, our underground drains, and there are a lot of them, ensuring that people don't block the trenches with their bridges, etc. Deal with the problem of dumping and littering. It is our belief that even with those ideal conditions, which will not be achieved overnight, that we'll need additional pumping. In the middle of July, we had unusual rains and the city was flooded. Where the presidents live had 2 feet of water. The fact of the matter is that the city is designed to take off 2.5 inches of rain every 24 hours. The present infrastructure suggests we can only handle 1.5 inches of rain in 24 hours. Over that period, we had 8.23 inches in 24 hours. So you see the massive change, massive increase. And the only answer to that is if you have additional pumping. Even in rich, affluent societies, you really can't put in infrastructure for unusual rainfall and unusual weather conditions. But what we will do, and hope to do over the next period, medium term, long term, is to provide conditions so that even when we have unusual rains, as we had in mid-July, within a few hours, with our cocos open, our pumps running, our canals running free, no grass, no littering, no styrofoam boxes to block the outfall channels, we can see the city dry within a few hours. Okay. That is the objective and the enduring challenge that we face at this moment.
All right. We'll take a quick breather and come back. When we come back, I still have lots to talk to the mayor about. Of course, I'm going to talk to him about youth and politics, his future in politics, his future at City Hall. Of course, the rehabilitation of City Hall, because the actual building, the actual structure, I know he has a big history where that is concerned, which he can't give you today, but I also want to talk about rehabilitating that building. And of course, there's still the issue of the city constabulary. Recently, there's been some reports about the behavior of our city constabulary. So we'll talk about if there are plans in the pipeline to reform that body. So we'll take that quick breather. And also, I'll try to take some of your phone calls when we come back. So stay tuned. welcome back. And of course, thanks for staying with us. What I'll do, viewers, the phone lines are open. I'll try to take a few calls in between conversation because, as I did say, there's still lots more that I need to discuss with the Mayor. Mayor Green, before we even talk about youth in politics, your future in politics, and so on, there are some concerns about the city constabulary. There was a major issue recently, maybe a few weeks ago, reported in the media that two officers from that body abused a female. Do you get these reports often about that sort of behavior, and what systems are going to be put in place to ensure that this stops?
It is almost traditional. The constabulary is part of a society that has degenerated over the years. Many male and female members of the constabulary and the police force and other agencies emerge out of broken homes, emerge out of communities where they see violence every day as the thing to do to get rid of their frustrations and deal with their problems. A young man or woman who's come out of a house where there's an abusive father or an abusive mother, transfer that to his work. And I have asked for a longer period of training so that we can produce constables and others who are sensitive to their responsibilities. We started that, which to deal with a problem. I hope I offend no one, but very often a constable is someone who could make it in the army, the police force, so he ends up in the constabulary. We've had recruited, particularly among the female corps, females who've got several children, and they have their own challenges. Who is to look at their children at night if they're put on duty? And therefore there's tension. There's a question of payment. And it is a sad situation, which I hope this government, not I hope, I know, this government will correct over time. It's not restricted to constabulary. It's a whole attitude, which is pervasive in our society.
All right. Viewers, don't forget the phone lines are open. If you're going to come through, remember the rules. Turn the volumes of your television sets down. Be respectful, and of course, try to be as brief as possible. You may forget the procedure, but of course, the telephone numbers are on your screen where you can reach us. Caller, are you there? Welcome.
Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon to you and Mr. Hamilton Green.
Good afternoon.
You know me, right? One thing I have to say very quickly. The urban park needs to be graded and make it a general bus park, especially. Leave the Georgetown for the car and private taxis. I think that is one of the best solutions to ease the congestion in the city. I've been thinking about it a long time.
Okay, caller. Well, let's hear the mayor's thoughts on it.
General, make use of it.
Okay, thank you for that, caller. Mayor Green?
It's a good idea, except that only this week we've had proposals for other uses, which I believe it's not right for me to disclose to the public what those proposals are. But there's several proposals, including the one he just talked about as a bus terminal. We have to, not we, the cabinet will have to look at it and see which of the proposals make sense in the context of Guyana and the city. This morning, at 9 o'clock, I had a group that came to me with a proposal, well prepared, for a fun park, which included parking for buses behind the 1763 monument. It is clear that in the not too distant future, we'll have to get rid of those two monstrosities that were erected by the previous government, an insult to the 1763 revolution. We have to get rid of that. And a decision will be made very shortly about what to do with that area stretching right east to Mandela Avenue. But the suggestion for a bus park happens to be one of the proposals that will be considered.
All right. If I can just piggyback on the caller for a bit. You did say that some of the proposals, it won't be prudent for you to put that information out there now. But if I can just ask you this straight, who will benefit from whatever is done with it? Because we're coming out of a governmental culture whereby everything that happened in the past unfortunately benefited the top bracket, if you want to. Yeah. So who will benefit from whatever proposals are being made?
I can assure you, under the presidency of David Arthur Granger, whatever decisions are arrived at will be the interest of the general public, the good of this country, and more importantly, to bequeath to our young people a society and an environment that they can enjoy and be proud of. I have every confidence that answer I just gave will become a reality.
Okay. Caller, welcome.
Yes, good afternoon to you and the mayor.
Yes, good afternoon.
I was going to call, but the point that you just made of who it's going to go to is what made me call. Because the point is this. The most abused word is the people. We're supposed to be one people, one nation, and everything's supposed to be for the people according to the Constitution. But when, after elections, it always becomes about, and the media has a lot to do with it, it becomes about the president, the mayor, the vice president, and the opposition. Now it's this person talking that. It is never about the people. And that is why I always speak of Fox Burnham. And it's the media who made it about Burnham. It was never about Burnham. It was about the people. It was price control for the people. It was the land to the tiller for the people. It was free education for the people. But the media who made it about Burnham. Burnham was never about himself, and I will always talk about him. And I hope we can get back to stop, because this is what's happening now, with the opposition now come talking about Mr. Granger this, Mr. This, and this is our problem for 5 years straight after every election, right? And this is why I don't vote, because it don't be about the people, right? So this is the point I want us to get back to eliminate all these people who talking why we gotta be going through this. Wait till next election when it's close and then that, right? But thank you very much for mentioning that.
Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, caller. We thought you were finished. Megreen, I don't know if you'd like to comment.
I agree with him. The good news is that, I repeat myself, David Granger worked as a young man under Forbes Burnham. I operated as an older chap. And we understood, and I think he understands, the philosophy as articulated by the caller, that what we do must not be to give a minister 8 cars or to put bank accounts overseas. It must be to benefit the people. And it is a long haul. I repeat my confidence in this presidency and this cabinet that is what will happen.
Okay. Caller, welcome. Caller, are you there?
Afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
I want to ask the mayor whether there are any plans to restore the Botanic Garden that used to be one of the best places to go in the afternoon with your family. What plans he has to restore it? Because right now it's in a state of disrepair, especially that portion that's going to Mandela Avenue.
It is an unacceptable condition. It is not the responsibility of the municipality, and I have not been close enough to give an answer. But I have no doubt that among the measures that will be put in place will be the Botanic Gardens. Remember, the President has made it abundantly clear, and his words, the city and the countryside must be made green. That's a profound statement. And the Botanical Gardens for years has been a lovely greenery with the trees identified and so forth. And I have no doubt that the subordinates of the President must understand what his instructions, his requirements, and his desires are.
For public knowledge, Mayor Green, who does it fall under? Which ministry, which body does that, the upkeep of it fall under?
I think it's agriculture.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm
We're
almost
responsible
certain
for the
that
promenade gardens, and that too, some work has to be done. We were able to get the support of the Republic Bank, and they annually are responsible for the maintenance of the gardens. We now have to put some money in to deal with some other things to do with the promenade gardens. But again, it's an effort to get the city green. There is a proposal to look at Independence, what we call Parade Ground, Independence Square. And the President has said, in my presence, he would like to see that area returned as an open, beautiful greenery for the people of this country. In fact, he even has a concern about the basketball court being there because that has imposed a surface. But that's another matter. So that he's already given instructions about some of these things.
Some of those things, okay. I
It's
guess
a question of time and how fast
and yeah,
we can
we will
move.
eventually see it unfolding.
Right.
Caller, are you there? Welcome.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good
The
afternoon.
mayor, good afternoon. I just want to make an observation
Sure.
concerning the caller that called before talking about about the people. I think the whole idea of the coalition is about the people. I don't see anything wrong with if Mr. Green talking about Mr. Arthur Green to being the leader. There's a quotation which says, let everything be done in decency and in order. And it's so true. Everything got to be done in decency and in order. And I think that the president thus far is doing an excellent job in terms of how he dispense its order and how he trying to formulate these committees that will look into the welfare of the people. This is what I'm seeing, welfare of the people. I know many people are trying to talk about these committees, but I think this goes, it eases a lot of the burden and we're able to get work done in a faster time more than a longer time. I think that's a very, very good move that the president is making, and I'm looking forward. As I said, I am maintaining my stand that I have given this coalition a year in order to see it bloom and blossom into that full bloom thing, and which means that till next year we're going to see, I think we're going to see a wonderful Guyana coming out of this new coalition that we have. So that's my contribution today, and I trust that it will be successful.
Thank you very much, Colin. On behalf of the government, I'd like to thank you for your patience, because not everyone is patient. I do understand that. Sometimes we have to give and take where the criticisms are concerned, because unfortunately, Guyanese have very little, or in most cases, no tolerance for delays and things taking time. So we do understand that, but at the same time, like the caller said, we are still urging you to be patient and a little more tolerant with us. Mayor Green did say earlier that David Granger has taken over a house where there are leaks, wood ants, pipes falling apart and everything. So there's a lot of work to be done. Callers, I see you trying to call, but I'll try to return to the phone lines depending on how long the mayor takes to answer my next two questions. Mayor Green, we are expecting local government elections this year. Lots of changes will obviously occur after that. Would one of the changes be no longer having Hamilton Green as the mayor of the city, or is Hamilton Green going to push on and continue to do what he can to help bring our city back to life, in a sense?
At a personal level, to answer that question directly, I believe that my role in the future should be to share my vast experience of being in public life since 1953, when we were struggling for independence with Jagan and Burnham, shared the interim government, the trauma of the 50s. I was a candidate in the 61 elections. I was General Secretary of the party from 1962 in the difficult days when people were killing, bombs were thrown at my house. I've had a long journey. I'm still physically fit, mentally alert to carry on. To answer your question directly, I have avoided giving a straight yes or no. But I believe my wife and children will kill me if I attempt to resume the position as mayor. For them, they see the 20 years of frustration that was only relieved a few weeks ago. I have not discussed this matter with the president, nor my colleagues. But speaking for myself, I would like to see an arrangement, and I'm anxious for local government elections, where I can hand over the baton to a younger person who is capable to run with it. If no one turns up, I'm prepared to run for another leg of the relay.
And which means you're prepared to have someone come on site and understudy you.
Yes, but I think we'll find young people. And as I said, I have discussed this with the president. He's busy doing all sorts of things. Except to say that I believe I told an overseas journalist, I'm not in the business of retirement. It's alien to my whole makeup.
Not if your wife has anything to do with it.
Well, they really would like me to spend some more time with them, but I am committed to serving the people.
Understood.
And I repeat myself, I'm not in the business of retirement. At whatever level the president, the party, and the government would like me to serve, I'm prepared to serve.
All right. And on that note, you're basically saying that you are willing to hand over to a younger person or have a younger person understudy you. What are your thoughts, your sentiments on the young people now in our nation regarding politics, regarding their future in politics? Have they thus far had enough exposure? Do they need more? And are you, not necessarily Mayor Green, but our, for want of a better word, our elders, our experienced leaders, have you dedicated enough time to grooming young persons to become better and more capable when it comes to dealing with the politics of our nation?
We have not done enough because so much time was spent surviving. And a lot of the old heads have passed on before they had the opportunity because the environment was not propitious. Many of them are overseas. Many of them wrongly say that we deemed a lost generation. I don't agree with them. They fail to recognize, I discuss it with some of my colleagues at home and abroad, that the young people in this country did not have the opportunities that a lot of us had in the 50s and the 60s. The other problem is technology has changed. So the sort of verbal intercourse you had earlier is lost. People communicate with the internet, the Facebook. Families no longer sit around the table to have dinner and breakfast. One is out doing something else, the other one is out driving a car. So that family intimacy, which we've lost, is unfortunate. And I've talked about it, and I think I'd want to help to repair that hemorrhage which occurred in our society over the past 20, 30 years. Somebody calling about Burnham a moment ago.
Mm-hmm.
Burnham's idea when he established national service was to deal with some of these problems, to catch up among our young people of every ethnic, social, economic group, to work together in a controlled environment so they leave there, one, learning more about their country, two, learning to love one another and erasing the old concepts about what the boy in the quarantine felt about the boy from Rupununi, and what the boy from Rupununi felt about the boy in the main urban center, what those in the Northwest felt about the boy at Buxton and Enmore. They meet together, eat some hard rice together, play football, cricket, have fun, compose their own music, learn to dance Indian, African music. And this is what Borum intended for national service. And I hope that this administration thinks seriously, even if it has to be adjusted, but some form of service where young people have an opportunity to meet together and produce leaders. So that it's a long haul.
Okay.
And I disagree with the last caller. This government will do a lot, but a year is a short time
too short.
to see real results.
Understood.
The biggest challenge is to arrest the hemorrhage which has started and to bring some of our people back, and those who are being trained to get them to stay. People, when Granger became president, already had plans to move out. I don't want to personalize this discussion, but all my children are away.
And we do understand that, unfortunately. My phone lines are still going. Unfortunately, I am almost out of time. So I'm going to give the mayor, I don't know how possible that is, about 1 minute, just to be specific about if there are any plans to rehabilitate the actual structure of the Georgetown City Council. Anything in mind or ongoing?
The City Hall, you mean?
The City Hall, sorry. Yes, the City Hall.
Oh, yes. For years, we were frustrated by the Ministry of Local Government. But once the government changed, we were able to re-engineer, restart the process of consultation. And as I speak to you, we've just agreed on terms of reference with the cultural people from the Ministry of Culture, the National Trust, and the European Union. At this moment, we'll be looking for a consultant to come here, I hope, before the end of the year and produce a blueprint for the restructuring, for the restoration rather, of City Hall. And it's important to say we're not talking about the repair, we're talking about the restoration. There's original beauty, we have to look for materials, and this process has started. We've been relieved. So again, we can look forward over the next period to a new City Hall where I remember playing the pianoforte under people like Francis Long, Shirley Garway, my music teacher, and to rehabilitate that pianoforte. I was speaking to Professor Long recently, and she will be part of a group to deal with the internal of the City Hall, so to restore those organ pipes, the pianofortes, and encourage young people to use that City Hall and the auditorium much more than it was used over the past 20, 30 years.
Mayor Green, it was certainly a pleasure. I'm in this case, I'm so sorry that my program is not 2 hours today. It has been a pleasure. Thank you very much for coming to Facing Nation. Of course, you definitely have to come back as we approach local government elections time, because we would want to hear more recommendations, plans, and regarding the city's involvement and all of that. So we'll definitely have you back. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Of
Good
course,
luck to you.
I was chatting with City Mayor Hamilton Green, His Worship the Mayor Hamilton Green. It certainly was a pleasure. Unfortunately, folks, we're going to have to leave it there for today. I am out of time. Thank you very much to those who called in, and you posed some very, very important questions which aided in this discussion to continue to inform the public. I am Malika Ramsey. I always urge you, be good, Guyanese citizens. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and of course, do join me again next time.